We're going back to 1944 to the floor of Iran's national parliament, the 14th Majlis. A single vote is about to be cast that, believe it or not, is going to change the course of history. And at the very center of it all, one man, Seyyed Jafar Pishevari.
And those words, those were Pishevari own, right after he heard the verdict. It just perfectly captures his defiant spirit, and really, it foreshadows the huge political crisis that was about to explode because the system had just shut him out.
So this is the big question, right? How on earth does a candidate who gets nearly 16,000 votes, we're talking the second highest in the city of Tabriz, get denied his seat in parliament? To figure that out, we really have to get to know who Pishevari was to the people who voted for him.
You see, for Pishevari, this wasn't just some political campaign, it was a total immersion. We're not talking about a distant politician here campaigning from the capital. No, he went right to the people.
For a full 6 months, he was out there, traveling through all these small villages and towns across Azerbaijan, and he saw it all firsthand. The poverty, the daily struggle, and this deep feeling that the central government had just forgotten about them. This whole experience didn't just inform his politics, it became the absolute heart of his message.
And listen to this. These are Pishevari's own words, which he later delivered right on the floor of the Majlis. He painted this raw, completely unfiltered picture of the suffering he saw, talking about 6- and 8-year-old kids forced to work in these dark huts, and about a whole people who felt utterly abandoned. It's no wonder they elected him. He was their voice.
Okay, so Pishevari makes it to Tehran ready to represent his people. But the parliament he walked into, it wasn't some ordinary assembly. Oh no, it was this tangled web of competing factions, and it was all being heavily influenced by the big global powers of the day.
You have to remember, at this time, Iran was literally occupied. You had the Soviet Union controlling the north, which, by the way, included Azerbaijan, while the British held the south. And both of these superpowers were actively trying to get their own guys elected. The Majlis was basically a proxy battlefield for their own global chess game.
And the political scene inside was just incredibly fractured. I mean, you had the pro-Soviet Tudeh party over here, then you had a pro-British faction led by guys like Seyyed Zia, you had nationalist groups with leaders like the famous Mohammad Mossadegh, and then a bunch of other independent groups. It was just a deeply divided and honestly a pretty toxic environment.
All right, now here's a really important point, a common misconception actually. A lot of people just assume Pishevari was a member of the pro-Soviet Tudeh party. He wasn't. It's true they were both on the left, but Pishevari was an independent, and he was fiercely focused on issues specific to Azerbaijan. The Tudeh party, with its very centralized top-down structure, actually saw his popularity as a threat to their own power in the region. In fact, some sources even hint that they were quietly happy to see him get rejected.
Okay, so this brings us right to the moment of truth. The political stage is set, his opponents are ready, and the debate over whether to accept his election is about to begin.
So what did they throw at him? Well, his opponents brought up 3 main charges. First, his past ties to the early Communist Party of Iran. Second, his involvement in the Jangal movement, which was decades earlier. And the big one, the accusation that Soviet forces had meddled in the Tabriz election to make sure he won.
But here's the thing. The arguments against him were almost entirely political. They were ideological. His opponents didn't bring forward any real, concrete evidence of, say, ballot stuffing or personal corruption. No, instead they just attacked his old beliefs and kept hammering on this claim that Soviet influence made his election totally illegitimate.
The speeches were over, the arguments were made, and the deputies got ready to vote. So, what was the verdict?
And the result was just unbelievably close. Out of 100 deputies there that day, 50 voted against him, 47 voted for him, and 3 just abstained. Think about that. By a tiny, razor-thin margin of just 3 votes, an elected representative was barred from parliament.
Now this vote wasn't just some political footnote you'd read in a history book. It was the spark that lit a massive fuse, and the consequences of this one decision would ripple out way, way beyond the walls of that parliament building.
The reaction back in Azerbaijan was immediate, and it was furious. The people who had voted for Pishevari to be their voice saw this as a complete rejection of their will. Massive protests, huge labor strikes, they just erupted all across Tabriz, basically paralyzing the city. This wasn't about one man anymore. This was about their identity, their region, and their political rights.
And you can draw a straight line from this event to what happened next. The rejection in July 1944 was the absolute catalyst.
Blocked from working inside the system, Pishevari went back to Azerbaijan. And just a little over a year later, in September 1945, what does he do? He founds the Democrat Party of Azerbaijan. And that's the party that would soon declare an autonomous government, kicking off the whole international incident we now call the Azerbaijan crisis.
So, there you have it. The rejection of just one man's election directly set off a chain of events that led to a major separatist movement and became one of the very first flashpoints of the Cold War. It was a profound, history-shaping turning point. And it's important to note, this analysis we've walked through is grounded in the incredibly detailed research of Yunus Lacy, a researcher of the contemporary history of Iran and Azerbaijan.
If you want to explore more incredible turning points in history just like this one, make sure you follow the Tariq Vashaksiyat channel. That's History and Personalities. We've got plenty more deep dives coming your way. Thanks for joining me.